We think that the country is part of the 2030 vision, and we think that we could be part of that and leverage that and reinforce that.
The country and the economy to become kind of AI centric and AI native.
I would say specifically in the UAE, first countries in the world to set up a Minister of AI.
In the last decade, Gulf countries have prioritized innovation. It's part of a shift from their prime standing as oil economies to their new goal of using the advent of AI to enhance their economies all around. It's getting attention from global tech hubs. A former Google chief said recently, Saudi Arabia has the potential to become the next AI powerhouse. Just last month, Saudi Arabia's non-oil private sector economy recorded the strongest expansion in more than a decade. Some of the biggest names in tech are pouring billions into innovation in Gulf countries, from physical infrastructure like data centers to partnerships that support virtual breakthroughs. This is Business Extra, and I'm your host and business editor here at The National, Salim Essaid. In this episode, we're bringing you some really insightful conversations on AI and how countries including Saudi Arabia and the UAE are positioning themselves to lead a global tech movement. Joining us is Amro Abdu, a global financial market strategist based here in the UAE. Hey Amro, thank you for joining us at The National.
Great to be here, Salim.
So, how ready do you think Saudi Arabia and the greater region is to become an AI powerhouse in the future?
I think they are as ready as ever for a couple of reasons. One is that even though we've been hearing a lot in the last couple of years about the efforts to drive the country and the economy to become kind of AI centric and AI native, I think Saudi Arabia, they started about 12 years ago doing like high level research on AI, especially out of KAUST, which is King Abdullah University for Science and Technology. So they've been doing that for over a decade, and now everything is coming together because it requires three things. One is innovation, investment, and implementation. And now all three are coming together, also backed by government policies, of course, that are pushing things towards that direction.
And what is it that Saudi can offer the global stage when it comes to AI? Again, like Saudi and regional as well. Is there something that it particularly can offer that maybe isn't available globally, whether being in the region or whatnot?
So I think it can offer a couple of things. One, and it's already doing that, investments. If you look at the global kind of state of finances of a lot of countries, it's very tight. The national debt for a lot of countries is extremely high. So therefore, the money that's available to be invested in developing the technology and developing the talent in a lot of places is just not available. So places like Saudi Arabia, the UAE being the two leaders, they are investing a lot of money in development, in innovation, and in upskilling their population. And of course, also the infrastructure, which is also very expensive. So these are the things that Saudi Arabia is bringing to the table. And there actually shows even in the ranking that Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and also we have other countries as well, like Oman and Jordan, they're moving up the ranks at a very kind of way.
One of the biggest signs of hope in the region is partnerships. We've seen Microsoft and Google make huge investments in Gulf tech. Here's Somana Palakanda, the international social impact leader at Microsoft Philanthropies, speaking to The National's future editor, Cody Combs, last month about just that.
I would say specifically in the UAE, I've been tracking this, been in space for around 6-7 years. It's one of the first countries in the world to set up a Minister of AI. I think the government regulations they've clearly looked at AI as a tool to help them become more competitive in the global space.
Why is that the case? Well, these governments themselves are making AI and tech a priority. Remember what we said about the transition away from oil? The foundation from that has to come in some way from the governments hosting these partnerships. Take the Saudi Data and AI Authority.
Over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to talk to you about how the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is your partner of choice to make sure that as the world looks at AI winters, AI walls,
that's Saudi Arabia's self-described, quote, competent authority in the kingdom concerned with data and AI, including big data, unquote. The UAE has done similar.
The UAE's AI ambitions are there for the world to see. We've started in 2017, and really the results that we're seeing today...
These countries are building government institutions around tech, specifically around AI in some cases, and creating an open season for tech companies looking to expand both their geographic reach and their technological capabilities.
There's something also very, I think, noteworthy, which is AI as an innovation is making us extremely efficient. And that like hyper efficiency is changing so many things of what we know regarding like jobs of the future, the education system, and every other sector of the economy, like healthcare and all these different areas. So one of the things that I've been thinking about lately, and that's where I think will give probably the UAE and Saudi Arabia an edge, is that if we look at AI as a technology, it's probably the most inhuman technology that we've ever invented. Meaning that it's there to replace the human intellect and capacity, or to make it very efficient. On the other side, we also have other problems that are actually at the core of our future as humanity. And the best way they can be described by the SDG 17, the 17, which basically global hunger, healthcare, income inequality, food security, and those sort of challenges. I think those who invest in AI and employ AI to find solutions for these challenges, those are the ones that will be leaders of the global economy in the future.
That's what I was going to ask you next, actually. So, where Saudi is now in that process versus what potential you see for it. So, can you describe, first of all, where we're at now when you're talking about Saudi Arabia, the UAE, even Jordan and Oman, in terms of current influence with their AI, and then how soon, if you're able to give some kind of projection to get a sense of a timeline, and to what effect do you see these countries really taking the lead?
I would say we're still in the second inning, to use a baseball analogy, and I say that because we still like the region, and Saudi Arabia included, of course. We don't own a lot of the IP. We don't own a lot of the technology. Yes, we're pumping a lot of investments in those companies that are leading that innovation. However, I think ownership of the IP is extremely important. That's one challenge. The other challenge would be the kind of the polarization that we see in the world, and the kind of the poly systems, the poly AI systems that we're seeing. So the Chinese are now coming up with their own systems. The West and the US is specifically coming up with their own system. So I think eventually countries, Saudi Arabia included, will have to choose which system to go with, and I think that might slow down the progress a little bit. But having said that, also there's the other side of the coin is because they have the resources, everybody who owns the technology and owns the IP will cater to them and will try to gain favor with them just because they have the resources.
But is the region as well trying to own their own intellectual property with this, or?
So intellectual property, IP comes from research, and Saudi Arabia is putting a lot of resources behind research and upskilling. I think they have a program where they want to have 1 million AI citizen or researcher in the UAE as well. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed University, AI universities, that's a great initiative. And we see that they're actually moving up the ranking in the research ranking, also in a very steady pace.
Shifting to energy, because that is a limiting factor when it comes to developing and utilizing artificial intelligence. So what advantage do countries like Saudi Arabia have from that perspective, and as it's transitioning from an oil economy to a more renewable one?
Yeah, that's a huge advantage. And we see it because, for example, if you take Europe, especially with the energy security issues that they're having, so a lot of different industries are actually either slowing down or they're relocating to different places. So we've noticed that like in the GCC, especially in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, just because of the abundance of energy, and not just the abundance of energy and the wide mix of energy sources as well. Like it's not just from hydrocarbons. Now we have from nuclear, we have from solar. Actually, the GCC region is now the second fastest growing in terms of new solar energy capacity after China. So the natural destination for companies that want to set up big data centers will be the GCC for sure.
Shifting to energy, because that is a limiting factor when it comes to developing and utilizing artificial intelligence. So what advantage do countries like Saudi Arabia have from that perspective, and as it's transitioning from an oil economy to a more renewable one?
So it's a big piece. It's a big piece of the ecosystem. So once you have a more mature ecosystem that includes the manpower, the skilled manpower, or the skilled labor and manpower, you have the data centers and you have the cheap energy. So that becomes almost like you reach like a snowball effect, and that attracts more people and more companies. So basically, it's a big piece of the ecosystem, and it just helps build up and accelerate the network effect. And once you have that, then you bring in more investments will come in. Therefore, more talent will come in.
Exactly. So then it'll be the go-to point for when future developments with AI take place. The infrastructure, the people, the readiness is here. So that could be something that could take place in the future.
I think it's going to be much faster than we think. I'd say probably in 5 years, the GCC countries and led by Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they will be among the leaders in the world, just because the ecosystem is there and the comparative advantages are many.
Hey, Amru, thank you so much for those valuable insights.
Thank you, Salim. It was fun being with you.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for deeper insights into the biggest news stories shaping the Middle East?
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip.
Listen to Beyond the Headlines, a weekly current affairs podcast from the national news in Abu Dhabi.
Surrender is not an option.
We break down the news and bring you in-depth analysis and expert perspectives on everything from regional power shifts to ongoing conflicts, giving you the full picture behind the events shaping the Arab region. Listen to Beyond the Headlines every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
So this has all become a part of a move away from an oil economy that's prompted unprecedented investment in a new kind of tech ecosystem.
We think that the country is part of the 2030 vision, and we think that we could be part of that and leverage that and reinforce that.
I attended the LEAP conference in Riyadh and heard from HP CEO Enrique Lores.
As a company, we're really focused on defining the future of work, which also is very aligned to the direction that the country is taking. And third, as we look at all the different opportunities in the world and where we think our investments can drive more better returns, clearly this is an area where, because of the growth that we think is going to happen, because of the geographical position, we think it's an area that for us as a company makes sense to be part of.
And what do you see the potential capabilities being? As you mentioned, being a hub in the region, finance, resources.
I think we see it in multiple ways, which is aligned to the investments that we are doing. We think it has the potential of becoming a manufacturing hub, really driven by both the size of the local market, but also the geographical position. We are in the intersection of Africa, Europe, and Asia. And clearly, from a geographical position, it's an area where it makes sense to build products. Second, given the ambition the country has to develop technology and to develop skills, we see the potential of becoming a technology hub where technology is being developed.
I attended the first ever AI Everything conference where I had the chance to speak with Dr. Hakim Hassid. He's the chief researcher of the Artificial Intelligence and Digital Science Research Center at the Technology Innovation Institute, a UAE-based scientific research center. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind when we get these questions is basically how do we compare ourselves to the giants, right? So I think the UAE has shown, in my opinion, a solid position when it comes to AI. I think the UAE was among the first countries that put sort of a bet on this AI since 2016, 17. We are not yet at the level of the US and China probably because of the size, but there is clearly a very good position and very important role that the UAE is playing. And we see this in the region also, in the MENA region overall. Most of the countries are getting actually big investments and are looking into how to have a good position. I think the region and the UAE don't want anymore to be a consumer of this AI, but they want actually to be an active player where they can contribute and where they can have their voice as a sort of an advisor, an active participant in the domain, rather than just importing, again, the outcomes of AI from different countries.
Dr. Hassid's work also looks closely at quantum computing. It's a backbone of AI that has the power to enhance its capabilities by making improvements in areas like data size and the speed of problem solving. I asked him about what we can expect on that front looking ahead.
Yeah, so as an AI guy, basically, when I look into the quantum, the computation power is extremely important. And if I can get it at a cheaper sort of cost, it will be even the best. So there are a lot of hopes into this quantum computing to come and fix all the issues. The reason is just not the cost, to be honest, but it's the capability that this technology could offer to enable a faster access to this AGI. Okay, so artificial general intelligence at the end of the day. So as we use more compute nowadays, we see that we are anyways limited. We are progressing, but we are limited. We feel that there is a sort of a war in front of us that we will be hitting soon, both in terms of data and in terms of compute, in my opinion. So quantum computing will definitely have an added value. And there is a lot of work that is currently done, including from our side, together with our friends in the Quantum Research Center, around generative AI and quantum computing. In terms of risks, well, the risks we see every day and what we think about are mainly related to the security aspects, right? So the security, privacy, and these kind of things. Everybody understands that once you have a solid and good quantum computing, all these algorithms we use today for securing the data, for encrypting the data, they won't be able to sort of stand anymore. Absolutely. So it's a risk. I think it's a risk that is worth. It pushes also the innovation in the cryptography world. And again, in TII, I think we are ahead of the wave from this perspective, as we have methods from the Cryptography Research Center within TII that are actually capable of standing and holding even under the constraints of the quantum computing. So for me, it's all positive at the end of the day, because it gives us more power to do what we are doing in a better way, and it pushes also the boundaries in different domains, including generative AI, as I said, security and the cryptography. The only thing that we have is nowadays quantum computing is not mature enough to be able to do things. There is still a lot of work to be done there. So there are few initiatives that are interesting, that are promising. But if you ask me if I can use it tomorrow, I would still stay with my GPUs rather than quantum computing.
So in short, we're looking at a delicate mix of obstacles and opportunities in the years ahead, particularly in the region. Dr. Essaid says factors like the size of a country and its financial capabilities all play a role.
In terms of budget, we are lucky to have enough budget to do the compute, to compute and to do what we want to do. The second thing is a small country is also interesting, because you remove all that bureaucratic layers and you need to go fast. You run it as a startup at the end of the day because you want to get something. In terms of weaknesses, I think everybody in the region will tell you the same thing, is related to the talents. So getting the right talents is extremely difficult. There are different reasons for that. We can discuss for hours, but I think, but we see a sort of a shift, to be honest. So 2 years back, it was extremely difficult to convince someone to come and work with us. Now we are getting more and more talents, even people leaving very well-known companies that are in generative AI and in the in general in the artificial intelligence world to come to us. So it's challenging, but I'm pretty positive for the next coming months or a couple of years that things will change completely and we will solve the rest of the problems. But again, it's probably the main problem that we have. We're lucky to have enough compute power, enough data to work, and enough freedom also to work on the things that we want to work on.
That's all for this episode of Business Extra. You can follow the latest in business at thenationalnews.com. This episode was produced by Yasmin Al-Taji, our editor Duat Farid, our audio engineer Arthur Edison, and I've been your host, Salim Essaid.